Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. My guest today is Kylee O'Connor, and she is a former track and field athlete from the University of Oregon and a former Duck TV colleague of mine. Duck TV is the student-ran broadcasting station, and I had an amazing time being part of that team. I get to cover sports. I get to talk with athletes. I get to just do what I wanted to do when going into the program. I would watch NFL Total Access when I was younger and just see these personalities just cracking jokes with other former athletes and current athletes and just having fun while just talking about sports. And I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. So I got to step into that role again, and to have that be with Kylee was an amazing experience. So I'm very grateful to her. And I actually didn't know she was an athlete when I met her. Just because, we were always working on school stuff or we were working on stuff for Duck TV. It wasn't until I graduated and then I kept up with her through social media that I found out that she ran track, and I knew Oregon has a great track program and has a lot of notoriety when it comes to being a track athlete. So I was very excited when she agreed to be on my show and agreed to an interview. And we talked about a lot of topics, and we talked about how she's in the middle of a move back to Oregon from California and how that's going with the pandemic, and just talking about sports world and the Black Lives Matter movement. And not to run things down, but she was she was well trained from her time being in journalism as well as being an athlete and how to handle the media. So there was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy, or guys and gals enjoy. And a quick reminder, if you are a fan of the DC universe, so Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, I do review the animated movies, and I finished up 2014 about a couple weeks ago, so I'm a little behind as far as keeping up with the blog series. But if you guys is something interesting to you, go to my website, keoniconlu.com, hit blogs in the menu, and then click the DC photo. Then you should be able to find the reviewed years. Kylee also has a blog, which I will throw in the description below. It is koctracktownjourney.com. So check it out if you're curious to see how she stays in shape and what her thoughts are for the week. It's a great read. Yeah, when I see athletes or, let's say Dwayne Johnson post his workout routine, some crazy part of my brain thinks that I can do the same amount of reps, maybe obviously not the same weight, or do the same workout. And I try, but I fail, but I still try. And hopefully when people read Kylie's blog and see her routine, her schedule, that it inspires them to also get out there and just get active and, get your body back in motion. Because I know with quarantine, it's kind of hard to do that. You want to be safe, obviously, but you also don't want to just lounge around the house all day. You need to get your body in motion. That's the best way to feel good, get those endorphins flowing. So whether you are streaming this interview through Spotify or iTunes, or watching it through YouTube or a YouTube Go app, I hope you enjoy my chat with Kylee O'Connor. Oh, so what a wonderful treat. Kylee O'Connor. I haven't literally seen you in a lifetime, even pre-COVID. It's been a long time. You got this beautiful backdrop for those of you watching at home and on the go with the YouTube app. And now you have a dog cameo going on.
Yeah, I know it's been so long. How are you doing?
I'm still in the office, so I'm still deemed essential, which makes me have the butterfly feelings in my tummy. So, it's good. Now, you told me prior to us scheduling this interview that you're in the middle of moving. Just moving from state to state is hard enough. How is it moving state to state with a pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, it has been it hasn't been that bad because my job lets me work remotely. So I was, based in San Francisco, living there. But once COVID hit, I came up to Oregon to have a little bit more space and, be able to be in this backyard and take advantage of it. So I did move out completely of San Francisco, which it was kind of eerie going back. I had to go and get a few things out of my office too, but it was so dead. I bike into work and it was, very, very few people on the road compared to, my typical commute where I would be passing bikers and people and tourists and a ton of people. So it was a strange experience, but the move was pretty easy. Was able to get out of the way on a weekend, but now just kind of hanging out for a bit until I move up to Portland around September.
Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, we're only, what, oh gosh, we're going to be August soonish. That's a month and some change. Whew, man. Whose house are you at right now?
It's at my parents' house. So I grew up in Eugene. I went to Sheldon High School and then went to U of O. So I am a Eugene kid, born and raised. And so I'm here right now, which has been nice.
Yeah. So currently in the society, we have a Black Lives Matter movement going. What have you seen from people in San Francisco, and what have you partaken in any of the protests or march?
Yeah. So, I mean, San Francisco is, such an inclusive and welcoming community. And I think that, that space was one of the first areas to have a protest. And actually, during that time, I actually was in Florida for a brief stint, and I was able to go to a protest in Fort Lauderdale. I actually went to a protest that was put on by a group of local public defendants, and it was really powerful part of the protest. We started at the courthouse in Fort Lauderdale and walked to the jail, and we were able to chant into this group of jailmates, and just to see their windows and the small sliver where they were actually able to see and just hold up their fists in solidarity. It's such a powerful moment, and I felt very grateful to be able to take part in that. But I think San Francisco has been very vocal and had a lot of protests, and nationwide it's been really great to see the support and everyone banding together and using their voice and their actions to try to warrant change.
Yeah. Now, have you gone to any of the protests or marches in Eugene? I think I have a friend of a friend, or I just follow on social media. I've seen her Instagram stories, and they got to a little bit of a skirmish last night or the night before. So I've been a little iffy, especially being up in Portland and everything going on about being in those large group environments. But have you checked out the Eugene marches at all?
I haven't, honestly, since I got back from Florida, and the COVID cases were pretty high there. Since I've gotten back, I've kind of sequestered myself the space pretty tightly, but I've kept up closely on social media, but I haven't been to a protest since I was in Florida. But I mean, I think it's so positive to see we're 50 days going, I think, in Portland on protests, and it's not letting up anytime soon. And I think to actually get this change to happen, it takes these big moments of people banding together and taking a stand. So I'm glad to see it.
Yeah. And you're an athlete, you're a college athlete, and sports for college got canceled almost immediately as soon as everything started. And now slowly sports are coming back. Baseball, basketball is having some scrimmages, and then football is they're still in their off season, but they're starting to have protocols. How do you feel that the professional sports are handling the COVID and their procedures to try to get sports reopened up?
I mean, it is it's a tricky situation all around. People want sports, athletes want to play, but public health has to be the first and foremost concern. And I think that college athletics, I remember hearing when some colleges brought their athletes back to campus, and there were already a bunch of cases happening and spreading. So I could definitely say it could be better. I think that going into fall, I anticipate that we'll see if there's a season, and if there is, there likely won't be fans. But I mean, there's no playbook for this, so I mean, people are trying to figure it out on a case-to-case basis. Administrations are doing the best they can, but we have to be better. We can't can't fuel this spread and fuel it because it's already growing at such a rapid rate. So, it's been nice to see, baseball start, see basketball start, and have them in these areas where there aren't fans and are able to enjoy the sport still. And, I'm glad to see that. And I just hope that we can continue at this pace where it's not spreading, but we're able to still, the athletes are able to play in a safe environment. So, it's tough all around, but I'll continue to, keep an eye on how they address it. And, I think everyone's doing the best they can, but it is, unprecedented for sure.
Yeah, and I've seen some creative ways to do the fans to like simulate them. With baseball, they have cardboard cutouts of everyone, like especially I think when the camera's on the lower level behind the dugouts, and then I think they had some fan noise for NBA or WNBA. So it's like they're getting creative, and
Yeah.
we'll see how this goes. I saw MLS had like a giant, like was it Titantron giant screen that has Zoom of some people, some fans. I was like, it's getting there. It's something different. It's gonna be weird.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I was doing my research into you, because I only when getting into this interview, I realized I don't really know much about you outside of our time together at Duck TV. 6-sport athlete at Shelton High School. Are you insane?
I couldn't make up my mind. I bounced around a lot. Yeah. I started with, soccer, and I think I did golf actually my freshman year. In the spring, I didn't even do track. And then, I did some soccer again, and then I hopped into swim team, and then I finally got into track my sophomore year. And then and then junior year, I did soccer and cross country at the same time, and then swim team again, and then track. And then senior year, all the same, except I also decided on a whim to, play basketball after, I hadn't played since 5th grade, but I thought, why not? So it was an adventure, but yeah, I love sports, if that wasn't clear.
It's abundantly clear. How did you balance all of that with, homework and keeping up with grades, and then just trying to have a high school life outside of sports, and just trying to be a high schooler, because obviously the support system the school provides for high school athletes, it's a little bit different than what college does, almost like completely different. How did you keep up with all those extra things outside of sports?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about time management, and I love to be busy. A to-do list, that's my favorite thing. I make a to-do list like every single day. And so in high school, I had to juggle my academics, as you said, and my sports and my social life. And it definitely was a challenge, but I would say I am good at prioritization and time management and, getting everything done that I want to get done. I remember in my senior year, I was involved in, it was called Mr. Irish Pageant. It was this pageant we did at Sheldon where we would raise money for the Children's Miracle Network. And when I had interviewed to be a part of it, I actually wasn't planning on playing basketball. I told them, I was like, I might try out, but I'm not going to make the team. Like, I haven't played in 10 years, so we'll see. So I ended up making the team, and the woman who ran the program was very worried that I wouldn't be able to juggle, these Mr. Irish duties and basketball and schools and, social, all these things at once. And, I reassured her. I said, I can do this. Don't worry. And it went out seamlessly. So I think I am well-versed in how to manage a lot of things at once. And, it's hard. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, but it's just how you spend each hour, each minute of that time.
So what happens for you mentally when you might slip up on something, like you forget a homework assignment, or you maybe too exhausted from all these things you're doing? How do you mentally get yourself back up on that horse of, I can do this, I can persevere through all these things I put myself in?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because I am a perfectionist. And so when I do slip up, I am really hard on myself, and, I get anxious about it and have, anxiety. And I think that ultimately when I do make a mistake, I just have to remind myself that this is just one little part of a big picture. And, mostly, or taking and learning about the situation and seeing how you can grow from it rather than dwelling on it. Because if I dwell on this mistake and am upset, then I'm really, losing time that I could spend doing on something else. So it's just about acknowledging, what you did wrong, how you can improve going forward, and, just making sure, it doesn't happen again. Because, like I said, time, we're all limited on time. And so just making the most of it is top priority.
Yeah, and you slip up on one thing, it gets you. It's a slippery slope. It's next thing you know, you're at the bottom of the hill.
Totally.
I'm speaking from experience, of course. So perfectionist, always busy. Who is your harshest critic?
I mean, I think myself for sure. Yeah, I like I said, my perfectionism comes out if I do make a mistake, whether it be with work or whether in college if I have a bad race, or in college if I got a bad grade on something. I try to hold myself accountable, and I'm really hard on myself, and it's like you said, you can't let it overtake you, but it's just understanding, let's say I did bad in this race, what was wrong with my mentality going into it, how can I be better next time, because I know I have the training in, so it's just mental, but yeah, I think it's just everything is so mental. You can get in your head so much, and for myself and being hard on myself, it's just about telling myself I gave my best, let's just improve from here.
Yeah, definitely. So Sheldon High School, guys, that's known for a pretty powerful sports program. And one star just came out of Sheldon High School, Mr. Justin Herbert from the University of Oregon, now a Los Angeles Charger. So when you hear that he is an alumni from your high school, how do you feel, and where do you think that where do you think that can take you if following in his footsteps?
Yeah, I mean, Justin is a great kid. He was my younger brother's age, so I saw him a bit in Pop Warner, and growing up in Sheldon. His older brother Mitch was my age, and so I always was kind of familiar with them, and I had some classes with Justin even occasionally, and he's just such a great kid. I mean, he's so nice, and he gets a lot of pushback because he's so polite, and it's just mind-boggling to me because he's so genuine. It's just he is such a great human being, but I think he's been such a great role model for all the kids in Eugene, because he always talks about how he was watching the games growing up, and he dreamt of being on there and playing for the Ducks, and he made that happen. And so I think for other kids here in Eugene, it's great to have him as a role model. I think he dreamed it and he made it happen. Anything is possible for me too.
Yeah, and I remember when he was coming out, everyone was kind of criticizing him because his role model was Joey Harrington, because Joey obviously didn't do well in the NFL. But it's it makes sense because Joey was a Duck and he brought the Ducks to prominence, and then he had this whole Joey billboard thing in New York. So it makes sense from a fan's perspective, from an Oregonian's perspective, to have Justin idolize Joey. Forget those
totally.
Forget those analysts.
Yeah.
So you had this very special relationship with your dad. And I know if I spent as much time with my dad as you did with yours, we would not be on good terms, just because we always butt heads. So when you were with the Lane Community College Titans, you ran track for them, and then your father was also a coach for the same sport, and you were dual enrolled, which is tough enough as it is. Actually, yeah, let's start with that. Being dual enrolled at Lane Community College and University of Oregon, how was that for you? How exhausting was it to get from point A to point B physically, not just literally?
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I actually lived in the dorms at Oregon, but like you said, I was dual enrolled, so I went to class at Lane too, and I played soccer and ran track at Lane for my first 2 years. And so I had a car, so getting there physically wasn't too difficult, but the whole situation worked out really well because since my dad was a coach at Lane, I got all my classes for free there. So I would take all these gen ed courses that, are the same classes I would have to take at U of O. I would just get them for free at Lane. And then I would take, Super J classes at Oregon at the same time. And I think the most difficult part was at one point, to keep my scholarships at U of O, I had to be enrolled full-time there, but then to compete in season at Lane, I had to be full-time there. So at one point I had like 24 credits, and it was a lot. During season, I remember I took Lori Shance's, sports media guru at the J School. I took her track class while I was running at Lane, and it was so fun because I literally ran in the Oregon Twilight meet and then finished my race and then came up to the press box and then covered an event that happened later on. It was so fun, but it definitely was, a lot to juggle. But again, to what we spoke to earlier, all about time management to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I took Lori Sean's class once, and then it was at I think it was, next to Bean, the dorms over there.
Global Scholars.
Global Scholars, yeah. And oh man, that was fun trying to trek across class and like, I gotta get there like 10 minutes. Oh crap. But yeah, no, she was wonderful. And what was actually something I enjoyed about your story is that student athlete and journalism, those two things tie in so much together. Now, you just said that you had to run a track meet and then cover it. Physically and mentally, how'd you push through that?
Yeah, I mean, I really embraced it. I thought it was really fun being an athlete, but then also covering athletics. And like you mentioned, I was really involved in sports media on campus. I did Duck TV with you. I was a sports reporter for the Daily Emerald. I did color commentary for KWVA at the women's soccer games. And then I was involved with the Association for Women's Sports Media. And by my senior year, I was president of that, the U of O chapter. And so I really was completely immersed in the sports media community at Oregon, which I really enjoyed. And then to be an athlete, first at Lane and then later to be an athlete at Oregon too, it was cool to look at it from both angles, because I think with media at Oregon especially, a lot of times athletes might be like hesitant to speak to media, thinking that the media might be coming after them, trying to like find a certain angle. So, to see from their perspective and to, explain to like my teammates how the media works and, how they should approach an interview. And that was really interesting to me, to be on both sides of it.
Yeah, because your answers do sound very much PR, very much trained from all your time as an athlete. It's just totally fine because it's probably engraved in your brain on how to answer any question that you get asked. I know that's how, doing this podcast, it's like I ask questions and I meet someone new. Like I tend to turn this mindset on. I'm like, I heard something nice, a nugget. I'm going to keep diving in. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not on a podcast. I'm actually meeting this person. Something's not going right here. Okay, so athlete, student, journalism student, how did you, I guess this could go back to the beginning. How did you pick that you wanted to be a hurdler? Because obviously track and field, you have so many events. I did track in middle school, and I was like, okay, I know I can run. I'll do the sprints. I'll do 100 yard. I'll do 200. Sure, why not? But I still didn't feel any certain pull towards one thing or another. What was it about hurdling and then pulled you maybe while you're at Lane, and then you became a heptathlete? Am I saying that correctly?
Heptathlete, yeah.
Heptathlete while at UO. So what pulled you to be a hurdler first?
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned before, my relationship with my dad and, how special it was to be able to build that bond with him being my coach at Lane and spending all that time with him. I mean, as you mentioned before, like with your dad, you said you wouldn't get along super well. And it was funny because everyone would always say to me like, oh, how is it having your dad as your coach? And honestly, I loved it. There was never any issues. I felt so comfortable around him that I think it only helped. And so to your question about why I chose hurdles, my dad ran hurdles in college. He went to the U of O also. He ran track and played football for the Ducks. And so, hurdles were always a part of me. And I think just my strong suit gravitated towards the long hurdles. And then once I got into the heptathlon as well, I think my dad tried the decathlon for a while. So it's just kind of, the multi events are kind of that gritty, grueling. You have 7 events over 2 days. So it's, not for the wary, but I always admire that challenge and always am up for a challenge. So I think that's why I gravitated towards that as well. But yeah, hurdling is in my blood, so couldn't stay away.
How competitive are you with your friends?
Oh man, I'm very competitive. Whether it's a board game or a game of horse or, a 5K, whatever it is, I am super competitive. I like to win and I don't like to lose.
Now, people that kind of that might rub that for people that might get rubbed the wrong way with that kind of mindset, how do you kind of justify having a
Yeah.
mindset and then kind of persuading people like, hey, it's okay to have super competitive friends because blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're not in the mindset of winning and of, seeing success, then it's not going to happen. If you have to believe in yourself and, you know, have high goals to ever be able to achieve those goals. Because if you're going into something saying, if I get third, that'd be great. Then you're already like giving yourself a disadvantage. I think it's sorry, there's a dragon fly. I think, um, yeah, I just think it's so important to believe in yourself. And whether in the end you end up winning or not, it's just all about having that mindset where you are confident in your abilities and know that you can achieve that. And I think a competitive nature is good to have because it helps drive you and helps push you to succeed in everything that you get into.
Are you going to be a coach someday?
I mean, I think that my dad has been a coach for decades and it looks really fun. I don't know. There we go.
You are good. We are back. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but everything's okay. iPhones tend to heat up. It happens. It happens. So we were talking about how you wanted to be a coach or just thought about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So I mean, seeing my dad be a coach, he really has enjoyed it for decades. And I don't think I'll be a full-time coach ever, but I could see myself, maybe being an assistant or doing it as like a volunteer to just out of enjoyment, just because I think it would be so fun and helping other athletes see success. And I mean, I really all my coaches throughout my life have been so great. I mean, in high school, it's funny talking about Justin. His grandpa actually coached me in hurdles in high school.
Really?
Roger Herbert, the Sheldon track is named after him. So Herb
Oh.
was a great coach in high school, and Kelly Walk also was my sprints coach. And then, going to Lane and my dad, and then at Oregon, Coach Curtis, the sprints girls coach, and Johnson, of course, and Coach Seth Hinson, who was my multi coach. So they've made such a big impact on me. I would love to be able to influence athletes in that same way.
Yeah. And so your dad ran at Oregon. You graduated from Oregon. What kind of pressure was that for you to? I don't know if there's a title for that. Is it a legacy or is it like, oh, are you a descendant or what? Is there is there an official term for someone whose dad or parent ran for the school, and B, how was dealing with that kind of pressure?
Yeah, I don't know if there's an official word. I think legacy might work, but
I don't know either.
but yeah, I mean, I the thought of going and running in Oregon, really never crossed my mind. Like in high school, I started in track pretty late, and I never, like I said, I was in 6 different sports, and so I never did club sports. I never really focused on a certain sport. I kind of just did everything, which I enjoyed, but also will have its disadvantages when it comes to like recruiting and really honing your skills year round. And so when I graduated high school, I was good. I made state and every year and would get to finals, but I wasn't any like spectacular athlete. Definitely not at the level that would require you need to join Oregon, the best women's program in the nation. So then after Lane and after my 2 years there, I kind of felt I wasn't ready to end my athletic career, and so I tried out for the Ducks. And I don't know if it was adrenaline or what, but the tryout consists of a flying 30-meter sprint. So that's it. It's 30 meters. It's such a short distance. And, getting there, I can remember Curtis, the sprints coach, said, girls have to go sub 3-4, guys have to go sub 3. And I ended up running a 3:37, which equated to 100 that is way faster than I have ever ran. So it was a really cool moment. And then I just joined the team immediately. So it wasn't like for a long time I thought about joining the Ducks. But it just kind of, I didn't want my career to end. And, to your point, competitive nature, just setting my goals high and, taking a chance and taking a risk and, knowing that I might fail, but not being afraid of that, I think paid off in the end because, I was able to join the team and wouldn't trade my 2 years as a Oregon track and field team member for anything. I really enjoyed that. And, having my dad run there, and then being able to follow in his footsteps was really special.
Yeah. Did he at all, obviously parents have some sway when it comes to what school their kid goes to. How much extra sway did your dad put on you to go to UO because he did run track and field? And or would he been okay if you decided to go to Oregon State and run track and field there? Or how was his lenience?
I mean, he was definitely didn't turn me in any direction. He just wanted me to choose what would be best for me. And as someone who wanted to pursue journalism, that was clearly the best option. And it's funny, I mean, coming out of high school, he pushed me to dual enroll. I mean, partly because, that whole money saving component, which was great. And then also, I mean, recruiting wise, for him to get an extra athlete to join his team, that wasn't too bad either.
Did you maybe make him try to wine and dine you to be a track athlete for Lane?
I should have milked it more. I kind of went with it, but you're right. I could have, but missed opportunity.
You could have gotten a free steak dinner and maybe a free trip to the beach.
Yeah.
So when I left high school, I went into community college as well, but obviously you were dual. I was just primarily enrolled in Lane. And I remember feeling a little bit of embarrassment to say, I'm going to community college while you guys are going directly to a four-year university. How did you feel, having that kind of game plan? And would you have preferred to just jump right into UO right off the get-go solely?
There is such a negative stigma associated with community colleges, but I think that honestly everyone, it's such a smart move to go to community college first, because like I said, these classes that I took at Lane are the same classes that I would have taken at Oregon, a gen ed history class, a gen ed math, whatever it was. But the fact that I was able to take it at Lane, for me, as my dad being a faculty member, it was free. And I mean, not everyone else aren't going to have it free, but the price is going to be cut so much that it makes sense. And it's so easy to dual enroll. You just fill out one form and you can dual enroll. And so in general, I think there is this thought associated with community colleges and how it's, lesser, but I honestly think people who do go that route are approaching just their whole college experience in a more smart way, because it can be so financially fruitful.
Yeah. So what did you take away from your experience at Lane? Because I know for me, it was just like, oh, this is UO-esque. The architecture kind of is similar, and it's a step in some direction towards getting the final degree. And I took it with, just get in, get out, and just do the best you can. And I ended up writing for the Torch for a little bit. So what did you get away from your experience with Lane?
Yeah, I actually did write for the Torch too for a little bit, and I think again that was a great stepping stool to where I would write for the Torch, and I'd have these clips that I could show during my interview at the Daily Emerald. So it's just, there's a lot of more opportunities to get your feet wet at the community college level. And again, yeah, it's, classes may have a bit more variety in terms of the students, their ages maybe, but all the classes are very well taught, and all your professors are great. And, it's a campus like any other. But yeah, I think that I definitely appreciate my time there. Like I said, I was very focused on sports too. I was playing soccer in the fall and track in the spring. So I was very focused on that. But I enjoyed all the classes, and yeah, it was a good experience.
Nice. How did you find journalism?
I think that, like, as you know, I'm a big fan of sports, and I wasn't necessarily a big writer in high school. I wouldn't say that I was a good writer at all, but I knew that I wanted to be involved in sports in my profession. And like, seeing broadcasters and sideline reporters and, women like Erin Andrews started to be represented on the sports media sphere. And so I guess seeing them, I finally was like, oh, maybe this is something I can do. And I think, representation, whether it's race or gender, whatever it is really important in all different fields. And so being able to see women succeed in sports media definitely put that in the back of my head that maybe this is something I could do. And like I said, I wanted to be involved in sports. So I thought that this would be a great route to turn to.
Yeah. So as a woman that has gone through, the journalism gauntlet at UO and has done Duck TV, has some stuff on her portfolio, reel, resume, all that fun terms. There was an incident that did come out about the Washington football team and all these allegations. How do you feel about that as a woman that is trying to get in this field?
Yeah, I mean, it's awful, and I hate that it is so prevalent. And that incident is something that is vocalized, but that's definitely not the only one. It's happening everywhere across athletic departments. And I mean, I think that a lot of athletic programs are doing what they can to change things, but the truth of the matter is it's really prevalent everywhere. And I think even seeing a lot of different male sports media faces on social media respond to it, just their reaction and a lot of times is not great. And just, I think just we need to acknowledge the fact that it's happening everywhere and acknowledge how big of a problem it is, and try to create spaces where everyone can just try to create more safe spaces across the sports media realm. But I also was very reassured by the sports media, the female sports media community, that during this moment, I feel like I saw so many people like speak up, and, everyone is so supportive of one another. And I think when I was at Oregon in an association for women in sports media too, it's all about finding that community. And I think that organization is great to be able to have peers who are going through the same thing as you, who you can reach out to and talk to. And, an organization like that is trying to create a space where people can have these discussions and try to make change.
Yeah. And, some things have came out since that report came out. I know, they hired I think they fired the voice of the Washington football team, and they hired a female broadcaster to be the new voice. So things are happening. Things are moving in the right direction. And who knows, maybe you'll become the next head coach for that team or something like that. So Duck TV, spinning it back to your progress through the journalism field, that's where you and I met. And I remember, I didn't know much about you heading into that. I just know you're very friendly, very kind. And what kind of mindset did you have, or what was the stereotype thoughts that you had going into your first time at Duck TV?
Yeah, I mean, when I first joined Duck TV, I had no, broadcast experience. I hadn't started with Daily Emerald yet. I think I had started a little bit with KWVA. So I definitely wasn't extremely confident in my abilities, but I went into it just as a learning experience to get better. I'd never been in front of the camera before. So taking every opportunity I can, being really opportunistic. If they say I can sign up for something, sign up for it then. And I really enjoyed the whole group, and it was such a fun group of individuals to, hang out with and do sports media with on a weekly basis. So I enjoyed it and approached the situation as just a learning experience.
When you see back to the first game you covered, how did you cringe at all to see how stiff you were?
definitely. I mean, I think mostly it's like I remember my first game I covered was a men's basketball game, I think, and the audio on the highlight is just so awful. It's just yeah, I definitely cringe. But we all have to start somewhere. So
Yeah, it's actually when I see all those my game packages, and then I saw the episode I co-hosted with Cale Newton, which I will try to get on the show. Um, yeah, I was like, oh, I'm still so stiff, and then it wasn't until I started this podcast, I'm like, oh, okay, that's how you be comfortable with when you can see yourself or know you're getting recorded.
mm-hmm. Totally.
It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah.
So did Duck TV and Daily Emerald, those kind of overlapped, correct? Is that the way I'm kind of picking up on that?
Yeah, when I did everything at once, Duck TV, Daily Emerald, KWBA. Yeah, it was all just ongoing where I kind of was involved in all of them sporadically. I think that I started with Duck TV and then for one term, and the next term I joined the Daily Emerald and then was involved for a few years.
Yeah, time management, right?
Yeah, exactly. Back to that.
So how much of the stuff you got from Duck TV and how much of the stuff you got from Daily Emerald did you kind of package together and get a job with the Pac-12 network?
Yeah, so I mean, all of that experience was super valuable, and I think just showing in your resume as a college student that you took the initiative to get involved and try to gain experience is huge. The job with the Pac-12 network, I was initially going after this postgraduate internship, which I was one of two finalists, and it kind of dragged out for 6 months, and they couldn't decide, and then they finally went with the other person, unfortunately. But they did give me this other job as desk coordinator and ticker operator. So, I mean, my main role was, scrolling words at the bottom of the screen. Justin Herbert threw for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Ducks win over Washington State or whatever it is. So that is how I kind of got connected there. Is they wanted to utilize me in some role, and that was what was open. And I did really appreciate them offering that to me, even though I think I realized pretty quickly that it wasn't a fit for me. I think I like a challenge, as I've discussed, and so I think that role wasn't quite a challenge enough for me. I kind of wanted to take on a bit more responsibility, so that's why I quickly found another job, the role I'm in today at a PR firm. But I did stick with them until I want to say end of January because I didn't want to. I got the new job I think 2 weeks after I started at Pac-12, but I didn't want to leave them hanging for football season, so I stuck with them and I worked on Saturdays for about 6 months while I also worked this full-time tech PR job during the weekdays.
Really, just time management is put on a metal chain for you to wear all around. Speaking as someone that is a desk coordinator or office coordinator, office manager, or whatever it is, I know that it can be a launching point to get into something else within that company. Sure. Was that something you thought about when you got the job with Pac-12? You're like, oh, I could maybe do this, or I could go.
I did think about that. I think that Pac-12, there's not a ton of room for growth in general, and so that was one of my hesitancies. I mean, there obviously were some opportunities, but I mean, as you know, the sports media world is very competitive, and if whether I wanted to get on air or whatever it would be, to take that next step would require much more than continuing to do the desk coordinator and ticker operator role. So I think it definitely depends on the company. For Pac-12, that room for growth wasn't quite there. Whereas my PR firm, there's a lot of room for growth, and a lot of other companies where you start in this entry level role and then you prove yourself and can continue to rise. So I don't think that was quite the situation at Pac-12, which is again why I decided to kind of choose a different route.
Yeah. Oh man, the sports journalism world, it is tough.
Yeah.
But I'm having a lot more fun telling stories, honestly. I'm like, do I still want to do this? I'm having fun talking with yourself and people like yourself that have stories. So when I read, let's say Bleacher Report, for example, I read an article, I see at least 2 or 3 typos in the title alone. as a ticket operator, person that writes the things at the bottom of the screen, have you had a typo, or have you saw one that you write and you're like, oh crap?
I do remember when we had to do, I can't remember the terminology for it, but when there was a new alert that we had to just have scrolling. And I remember one time I was something technical difficulty, something was going wrong and it would not pop up. And I was just flipping out, like, because, if I mess up, it's not just on my computer, it's on every TV. It's watching Pac-12 around the world. And so, I mean, I'm a stickler for, AP style and for language in general. And so I think, Lori Sean's taught me not to, no typos, and, read over my work forwards and backwards. So I don't think I had any typos that way, but I definitely had a lot of stressful situations with just the technology struggling in general, with those last second alerts.
Yeah. I mean, I've taken a tour of, I think it's KGW studio here in Oregon, in Portland. And yeah, they had TV screens galore. And they had a little screen with all the alerts on the side. And I was like, oh, so that's how they do it. So when you were saying that, I was like, okay, I am picturing her broadcasting studio or her newsroom now. Do you ever miss your time there, even though it was short? Was there anything kind of noteworthy, special that you just like, oh, I kind of miss it?
I mean, it was cool that I was just in the bullpen where they were, editing clips and, making the broadcast. So that was cool to like be in the mix of it. And one of my former teammates, TJ, who was a thrower at Oregon, he also worked for the Pac-12 and was just like a seat away from me. So that was really fun just to be able to reconnect with him. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate it all the time and what I learned there. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, I see all the on-air talent and got to meet a lot of those folks, so that was fun.
Were you starstruck, Al?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's pretty hard to get me stars. I was starstruck when I was a camp counselor in high school at Camp Harlow here in Eugene. I was a counselor for Tony Dungy's daughter, and I told myself, he's a Super Bowl winning NFL coach, and I told myself when I found out his daughter was going to be in my cabin, I was like, I'm just going to go and talk to her first. I can't pay attention to Tony. I have to focus on his daughter. And I immediately, right when I saw him, that all went out the window, and I'm like, Tony, thank you so much. Like, great to meet you. I wrote a school book, I did a book report on you, but yeah, it was funny.
What was his response?
He was kind of like, oh, great, that's cool. And then I'm like, oh, and here's his daughter. And his daughter Jade was really great. She's a special one. So
yeah. So I worked at the Qdoba Mexican Grill on campus, and I would work sometimes like a little bit to the end of the start of the day and then into the night shifts. And I remember still getting a little bit starstruck when I saw the football players come in. and I was just like, I was trying to say like, oh, I wished him luck on the game. I pat him on the shoulder. And then that just came up all as fumbles, and just all the wording was just horrible. And I could tell from his face, he's just like, I am never coming again. I was like, oh, okay, well, good seeing you. So there is, sorry, my eyes have been watering this whole interview. So, it's just such a moving things you're saying. It's just bringing me to tears. So kind of wrapping up your collegiate career and your I guess athletic career, because organized sports, unless you want to go out for indoor track and field, is that something you've thought about?
For indoor track,
or just track and field in general, like professionals? Or
I mean, I love running, and I think I'll continue to train in general to like stay in shape and for my sanity. This past year, I was trying to train with my full-time job and an effort to try to qualify for Olympic trials, and everything is in the air, so who knows about the Olympic trials next year. But I think I'll probably still train for the fun of it and see what can happen. But yeah, I mean, I love running and I love being fit and, committing to something, and having that goal that you can reach. So I definitely think I'll continue to just train, whether that means I ultimately qualify the trials or not. I just really enjoy the process of, fall training, building up your strength and getting the lifts in and then getting your speed up, and the feeling of, being fast is unlike any other. Like it's so it's like addicting.
Yeah, like in April, I was on a kind of a crazy run phase, I should say.
Mhm.
Where I was running a lot. I could see that my pace was going up. I was like, I'm in good shape, blah blah blah. I was like, sweet. Then I took some time off to go work on this, and now I'm like, I'm not as fast as anymore. That's it's degrading. But where I was going with that is, as a person that is kind of not in organized sports or competitive sports representing a school, there is an argument about NCAA students being paid athletes. Where do you stand on this argument? And as a former, NCAA athlete, where would you like this to go?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a very controversial discussion for so long. I remember in high school, I even wrote a school paper on this, and here we are today with very little change. And so, I mean, I think for me, I do believe that student athletes should be paid. I think that when you consider how much revenue is brought in from the athletic department, whether it's merchandise or ticket sales, etc., universities could not operate at the level or grow at the level that they are without this revenue stream. I think when people like, Tim Tebow, for instance, I mean, I don't want to call him out, but I know he's been vocal about his opinion. And I think him, a white male who was, had his mom, his family background, and he doesn't think that, athletes should be paid and thinks that it like corrupts the system, makes it too much like a business. But from his point, he had stability. He didn't have to worry about taking care of his family, and so I think like not every athlete has that privilege and is able to just come into a university setting and fully focus on their sport. And I think also when you think about the brands that these athletes, a lot of them have built, for instance, Sabrina Ionescu, who, as you know, is such a phenomenal athlete and person. She has not only helped Oregon women's basketball, get into a competitive state in the NCAA, but her brand, she's elevated Oregon women's basketball to a national scale, to even, arguably a global scale, has helped with recruiting, helped with, merchandise sales. It just, the list goes on. And so, I think you really have to see how much value that she brought to the program, and she didn't get paid anything. Clearly, obviously, scholarships are great, but if you really think about it, for a lot of these athletes, is the money that they're making from scholarships, does that equate to the amount of revenue or even close to the amount that they're bringing in and providing university? Because in cases like Sabrina, and obviously she is an outlier, she is has done so much for the school, but when you think about her, it's not even close. And so clearly it would take a lot of regulation, a lot of work, but I think that everything, worth anything takes work. So it's ultimately about the NCAA understanding if they're willing to put in the time and effort to create these regulations that equate value, that an athlete brings to a program to the amount they are compensated. Because right now, I think it's definitely does not add up.
Yeah, that would have been especially prominent, especially when NCAA football was the video game was up and going, but I guess maybe 5 or so years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know that I think that was passed recently where, student athletes can now be in these games and get paid for likeness. I guess they can't
Mm-hmm.
use the actual names, but they can use likeness.
Yeah.
I was like, finally, maybe this will mean the video game come back.
Yeah, there's definitely incremental changes and making progress, but which is great to see. But yeah, I definitely think that athletes contribute so much, and they should be compensated proportionately.
Yeah, and when I was still, I guess, my last year of college, I do remember hearing that some athletes had to go hungry because they couldn't afford food because they're not allowed to work, or they're not allowed to work. They just don't have the time to.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could have made time to it. Time management maestro.
No, but that's a great point too, because other students are able and have the time to, go get a part-time job to kind of, pay for a lot of these necessities, or food or rent, etc. But as a student athlete, you've got lifts early in the morning and practices in the afternoon, and you have to stay to a certain diet and have like physical therapy and have meetings with the nutritionist, and there's so much that goes into being a student athlete that it's nearly impossible to have another job. In a lot of cases, like you said, they don't even allow for that. So it's really limiting what athletes are able to do and how they're able to provide for like themselves. And in some cases, if they need to help their families out as well, it's just not possible.
Yeah, and I mean, the school's doing something to help you guys out, or help student athletes out, as far as having the JQuA Center, where you can go in and get tutoring, and then you have counselors and whatnot. So yeah, it doesn't feel like there's enough because again, they're bringing all this money, as faces of the school, and it's like, you can do it. Come on, guys, you're almost there. Keep pushing.
Yeah, I know, we can help it. Like I said, they're making incremental changes, which is positive, but hopefully they'll continue to ramp it up and make a more equitable situation.
Yeah. So your time at the Register Guard, was that before you went to Pac-12, or is that afterwards?
Yeah, so I actually held that job my entire senior year. I only worked nights mostly though. I was a sports reporter for high school sports, so the timing worked really well, because I'd work, Fridays, sometimes Saturdays, maybe Thursdays, depending on the athletic schedule for high schools. And then I'd write quick blurbs about how the games went. But yeah, it worked out well. I did that June to June my senior year, so while I was training and while I was going to school, but it was very manageable.
So I did see from your website, which I will, if you would like to do a plug later, that I'm all for it. You wrote for the Register Guard, article called "Young Cowboy Will Test Talent in Las Vegas." That was in 2017. What was that, your first majorly published article, or was there some before?
I mean, when I also, with Lori Shantz, I mentioned before, in the J school, I took her Olympic trials class. So in 2016, the summer, I was able to cover the trials. And during that time, she really connected us to a lot of outlets where we would freelance for them. So I wrote for the Arizona Republic, for the New Hampshire Gazette, for a lot of these random local publications around the nation, which was really cool. So I would say that was my first true exposure to writing for a major outlet. Like the Arizona Republic is the most significant one, I think. But then when I did join the Register Guard, there were a few opportunities to write these feature stories, which I was totally open to doing.
Yeah. So then the young cowboy that I didn't write down his name, unfortunately. What did, so for me, when I finish this, I will send you the video because I want you to be the first one to see it. When the article came out, did you connect with the gentleman, or you were just like, the article's out, go look for it yourself?
I definitely, I mean, I took time to interview him, and he was, in high school, so I talked to his parents a lot. And it's funny because my mom actually ended up knowing him. I had no idea, but it came up when we were talking on the phone. And so, yeah, so I talked to him and wrote the article, and then followed up after, like, hey, here it is. And it was really fun to write and talk to, and he was a great kid.
How did he end up doing in the competition? Do you remember?
I don't remember for sure, but I think he did well. I didn't get the exact place or anything he did, but he achieved his goals, I would say, at the main meet.
Mason Stoller is his name.
Yes, there you go.
I know. I was like trying to very secretly trying to look up because I don't want to keep tiptoeing around his name. So, have you touched base with him at all? I mean, you said he did fine, but some part of you, are you kind of curious to see where he's at now in his career as a cowboy, or are you just
You
kind of
know,
like, got things going on in yourself?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't really thought about it at all since I talked to him, however many years ago that was. But yeah, that's a good question. I am now curious, but no, I haven't really connected with him since then.
Yeah. So you are working at a PR firm,
Mhm.
and then what was the name of your workplace of business?
It's called Launch Squad.
Launch Squad.
Mhm.
And while you're working at Launch Squad, you do have that website. Which would you like to plug it in at this very moment?
Honestly, that website is very outdated. I have not touched it since 2018. So, I mean, yeah, it is just KylieO'Connor.com, and like I said, it's got all of my work from college, but I I have not touched it since then. I did last year make a new website. That's when I started training for Olympic trials. I created this blog just to kind of, for my sanity again. I would write my workouts and kind of recap how my training went, and so that website is KOC Tracktown Journey. That was a ton of fun to create this blog and write on there. But yeah, I haven't really looked at the KylieO'Connor.com in a quick minute.
Yeah, so actually, yeah, the KFC Tracktown Journey, that was the one I was referring to. But
Oh, I see.
yes, I looked at both because it showed up also. I created one also, and actually the website that I have now, that is the same one I made back in school. I just kind of revamped it. I was like, it's here. Let's
Gotcha.
rock and roll. Uh, what have some of the responses been within the track and field community with your articles and with your blog posts and with your website?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was great to see people, interested in hearing about my training. I think the Oregon Track and Field program is very, mysterious almost, where it's very, you know, closed doors, which
Mhm.
for good reasons, because it is such a prestigious program and we want to focus on just training and not really have any outside distractions. And so I guess, people found it interesting because for the most part, especially in the fall, I kind of kept my training similar to that of University of Oregon. And I think, being a former duck athlete, people were curious about what I was doing and how I was training. So that was great to see. But I think for the most part, the whole platform kind of just served its purpose for myself as an outlet for me to, you know, chronicle what I was doing and recap the week and kind of debrief and plan for like the next week and things like that. So I really enjoyed it just as a way to, decompress my training and, continue to think through what I'm doing that week, what I just did, and just yeah, just have a platform to share my thoughts.
Yeah, and it's really well done as far as like the layout and basically how you want it to look. And some of the photos are looking very familiar because I believe you had a photo session with one Dylan Vibes, which I had. He was supposed to be a guest on the show, but there was an incident where I lost his interview, so he's gonna come back again.
It's
Yeah,
another excuse to talk to him again, so that's good.
exactly. What was it like working with him?
Oh, Dylan is so great. I mean, I actually first was introduced to him when I took Lori's Olympic trials class because Dylan was a part of the class as the photographer. And he's so good at what he does and he has such a passion for it that clearly like, shows throughout his photography. And so, I've connected with him throughout college and touch base with him. I was like, hey, maybe we should do a photo shoot sometime, and we were able to connect in Portland when I was here around Christmas time, and I really appreciated him taking the time because he is, like I said, so good at what he does, and the fact that he was able and willing to spend a few hours with me, and I really appreciate it, and it was fun.
Yeah, I met him during school. I think it was during photography class, which already like why you taking photography class, bro? You're already like right here, very top notch. But he is super friendly and super like kind, and him again. So I'm grateful to him for you know taking that hour of his day. But then I screwed up. But hey,
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to reserve another hour of his day. That's all.
yeah, there you go.
So, Kylie, as we wrap this up, what do you have going on for yourself outside of the move that will help you kind of push through these hard quarantine times.
Yes. So yeah, I know it's tough times for everyone and so much uncertainty. And I mean, I've been kind of trying to figure out what's next for me in my career. I have really enjoyed my time at my PR agency, and I've grown so much. And I do want to get back into sports. I do miss that component so dearly. So I haven't decided 100% yet, but I may be going to grad school this fall at the University of Oregon Portland campus for sports product management. I am nearly about to pull the trigger, but we'll see for sure. I need to make a firm decision, but like I said, I really want to have sports be a part of my life again, and I realized, I don't want to be a beat reporter or a broadcaster, and so I think that sports product and creating products and equipment that athletes can use to equip their body and achieve success. As a heptathlete at Oregon, all my gear was so vital. I had so many different pairs of shoes to compete at high jump and shot put in the 800, etc. And so I think it would be so interesting and fun to be able to innovate those products and design them and help, the end-to-end product experience to go and, approach that world. And I've done comms up to this point in my career, and so it's completely different. But I think, again, I'm always up for a challenge, and I kind of need that challenge in my life. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted, but I need to make a decision soon.
What's stopping you?
Oh, the cost. That's for sure. I mean, I'm just trying to weigh whether it's worth the money, and I'm like seeing scholarship opportunities and things like that. But that's I just need to pull the trigger, but we'll see.
Yeah. That, it's going for a master's program or master's degree after spending some time away from college. That's going to be rough because I have not done it, but just from what I see from the outside in, it's like you got set in a way of a lifestyle that school was not a part of. You could go to work, go do stuff after work, not to reincorporate school. I mean, that's a testament to how much of time management that you have underneath your belt and how you like to be busy. So I'm very excited for you. I'm very happy for you. And keep me posted, and then I'll just love to see how you're doing. I love talking with you. So
thank you so much. It was so fun chatting with you. I really appreciate you thinking of me. And yeah, if you ever need anything, let me know. And now I'll be in Portland, in the next few months, so I'll be close.
Take that trampoline with you.
Yes, I know, right? I love that thing.
That's the only thing I ask. Just bring a trampoline. Kylee, thank you so much for virtually sitting down. And good luck with the movement. And I'm looking forward to when you get back up here in September, we'll go grab a drink and we'll go grab some dinner and we'll catch up in person.
Yes, sounds good. I mean, enjoy, stay in there, hang in there during the rest of this COVID. I mean, I hope for everyone's sake that we have a vaccine semi-soon and can have this time behind us. But you're spending the time so wisely. So thanks again for bringing me on, and sorry about the phone overheat situation.
Thank you for sticking around to the end of the interview. Do you have any follow-up questions for the guest? Throw them in the comments below, then I'll work to get them answered for you. If you like what you heard and you want to listen to more episodes, go ahead and follow Keoni Chats on Spotify and iTunes. If you want a video version, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. And if you want to stay connected when I'm not posting things as far as blog posts or podcast, go ahead and follow us on Instagram, the KC Media 13 handle. And then you can also like and follow the Facebook page of Conlu K Media, which is also KC Media. And if you want to become a guest, go ahead and message me those on those platforms. Or you can email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com. I'll get you scheduled. Let's connect. Let's have a chat. So until the next episode, everyone please take care.